Alright lads, and welcome to another video. Now before you get your knickers or your panties in a twist, Warlords of Draenor had pretty good raiding. I cannot fault the raid content of this expansion. It was tactical and fun, so really the expansion was pretty good. But there are a number of contributing reasons as to why the sub count is at a record low, to the point where Blizzard are too embarrassed to even release the numbers. There are less people playing now than there was during vanilla, which is pretty bad. I personally quit after about a month of playing. I realised my spec was unplayable and the other spec I could play was just tediously boring and too simple. I probably did about 2 rated battlegrounds and 20 arenas, so eventually I decided to re-roll to a Brewmaster Monk. Probably played that for about 2 months, just to try out some raiding, which was fun. Raid content was sound, but eventually I got bored of that. So anyway, let's begin counting down the 10 reasons why Warlords of Draenor was the World of Warcraft killer. I think the main reason why people have quit is because there's nothing left to do, and patch 6.2 has been out for about 7 months and will continue to exist without further content until Legion comes out, which are released in approximately in September. So 6.2 will last approximately 1 year and 1 month, which takes the piss. The expansion will exist for 2 years. A 2 years expansion with 2 raid tiers, the raids on release and the Hellfire Citadel. Just as a comparison, the Wrath of the Lich King was also out for about 2 years and 1 month. There was a raid on release, there was Oldham, then Trial of the Crusader, then Fall of the Lich King with some filler content added, such as some more dungeons, added little raid, there's the Argent Tournament mini-games as well as a quest line, and I probably missed out a few other things. So really we're talking about over twice the amount of content was actually in Wrath of the Lich King compared to Warlords of Draenor. There's really no way to defend this. It's literal money-grabbing laziness. Blizzard have obviously chosen to focus their efforts towards other games like Overwatch, Heroes of the Storm and Hearthstone, but I don't see why they had to completely freeze the development of World of Warcraft. It's almost like the game died. Like everyone randomly stopped unsubscribing and then they decided to stop even bothering to develop the game. But, they'll probably milk out, all the subs back with that film and then the spoon-fed goodies of Legion, so they just don't care. Just as a side note, the footage you can see in the background is the vanilla Onyxia achievement questline. You basically had to adventure around the world with a group of friends to defeat certain leaders of each dragonflight to prove yourself to the Black Dragonflight, because you're trying to infiltrate yourself into the raid to defeat Onyxia. Prior to this, you had to create a device that disguises you as a Dragon King, but anyway, it's just a little comparison for the effort and the adventuring you had to go through before you could even start raiding, whereas now you just click a button on your microbar. The next reason is the Garrison, the biggest letdown of player housing in the existence of MMOs. What we wanted when we told Blizzard we wanted player housing was, a big castle or a mansion or a little village cottage which we could customise, chill out, invite some friends over for some mini games while waiting for a raid group to start, maybe go into your castle armory, do some crafting, maybe there were certain tasks to do in order to maintain your home, but instead we got an attention-retaining Facebook game. That kind of spoon-fed you gold, crafting materials and even your raid gear. You could literally play the game without leaving your garrison. I also just generally didn't like the look of it, really. You couldn't customize it in any way, so everyone's just looked the same. And I didn't like the openness. I wanted a castle, or maybe as a guild you could have built a small village and each member could get his own house and you could live like a little community. I mean, that's what we wanted with player housing. It's the kind of framework that other MMOs use. They were trying to turn it into a small simulation game, which was a good idea, but the way they did it just didn't work. If they were going to do something like that, then they should have done it more like a Settlers game. The next reason is the lack of good PvP content. Obviously Blizzard put most of their development time into Ashran, which was a good idea, but turned out terrible for most people, but I'll talk about Ashran later. We got no new battleground design or anything particularly original except for the free-for-all arena, which it just wasn't really enough. The PvP content has been the same for a very long time now. The battlegrounds are just, they're just kind of plain landscapes, CTF or base objective, and I guess people just got bored. In Guild Wars 2, the maps are smaller, but there's more detail to them, like buildings and different levels. If you look at PvP footage, it looks epic with players like falling off cliffs and stuff, whereas WoW it's more flat. There needs to be some fresh ideas in the PvP scene. Everyone likes battle royale modes these days, so maybe they could easily implement something similar. Because playing with healers, it just feels like some long and boring sometimes. But there's so many ideas out there with other similar competitive games that they could just replicate, and that would be good enough. Fourth on our list is Afexis crystals. I don't understand what was going on inside Blizzard's heads when they decided that it would be fun for a player to spend over 24 hours playtime endlessly killing the same mob over and over to get good enough gear to go into a raid. It was obviously implemented as a lazy way of keeping us playing the game and paying subscription. And this ties into the next reason, which is the legendary ring. You may think that legendary ring was pretty cool, and I guess the questline was somewhat interesting, but its very existence ruined the game for some people, since it would be difficult to enter a raid guild without spending countless hours farming for the ring. Blizzard have designed the game to be the subscription business. They designed the game to be like the subscription business model, which was okay until WoD, because they really started to milk it, and once it's that obvious, then you become less motivated to spend money on a game that is intentionally making you spend pointless, boring time to even begin enjoying the game. At least in vanilla, when it took long to do something, it was enjoyable and it felt like you're on some kind of adventure, but just killing orcs in a raid group for hours doesn't feel like anything. It feels like doing a boring, robotic job when it's supposed to be a game, and games are supposed to be fun. For number 6, we have another PvP reason, and that is the overall class redesign that was introduced. Basically, there was a lot less casting while moving, instant casting, and general maneuverability for casters, which meant you had to hard cast a lot, which in PvP is painful and just simply frustrating and boring. A lot of specs also experience a severe DPS change, where their DPS will become even more progressive to the point where it dealt no pressure in a PvP environment, like the Elemental Shaman Mastery change and the Lava Burst nerf, and obviously Unholy Death Knight, which couldn't deal any pressure unless it was constantly in melee range. They said they were going to reduce burst and make DPS more progressive, which is a good idea, but instead the more progressive DPS became unplayable, and the burst DPS specs ruled supreme, and so they essentially did the exact opposite of what they said they were going to do. The 7th reason is a general dumbing down for the linguists out there watching this video, the general convergence towards a less intelligent and patient audience. I'm obviously talking about the removal of reforging and a reduction of gemming and enchants. World of Warcraft, it's meant to be a role-playing game where you strategically alter your character to become more powerful to defeat your enemies. It's one of the core aspects of the game. Not only is it bad because of that, it also means you have to spend more time raiding in order to get your best in slot gear. So the game it becomes a frustrating game of RNG poker, which makes you play the game longer and give Blizzard more money. And now let's talk about Ashran. Ashran was meant to be a reboot of the old Alterac Valley. Now, you may have heard people talk about old AV, and they may have said things like it lasted forever and it was awesome. I've played old Alterac Valley quite recently, and people purposely turtling the game so that they can defeat certain bosses in AV, it's boring. Old AV is a little overrated, I think. I think it's just because so many people don't know what it was really like, then people, I don't know, I don't think it wasn't as good as people make out. It did have some good elements to it, however, like the mixture of PvE and PvE content. For those who don't know, in old AV you had to defeat certain bosses to capture certain bunkers, and they were difficult to kill without a tank, so a team of 5 could easily wipe a team of 10 if a team of 10 was on a boss. So in order to help you push, you had to farm like frost balls and blood to summon like certain bosses which could push and fight with you and help you to cap certain bases and win. And that's the good part, and Ashran had stuff like that. Ashran was a very good idea, especially with those books which would give you special abilities. But the map was small, and the winning part just felt boring, and the way, it was just boring in the same way that old AV was boring. And all the side objectives were also kind of dull. It should have been more about pushing bases, defeating bosses, and summoning bosses to help you push like old AV. And the fact that the map was just so linear, it's just one line going through the map, it's just that was crap. The second to last reason is to pay to get a level 90, which is now level 100 rip-off pest take thing. I don't think I need to explain why this is such a bad thing. Blizzard are basically saying that their game is so difficult for new players to get into that, let's just give them the option to buy their way through the boring bit. So I guess the leveling is an extension to this reason. The problem is that that boring bit shouldn't be boring in the first place. The whole paying for a max level toon thing shouldn't need to exist if they bother to revamp their leveling, because right now it's just a mindless grind for 4 days playtime. I just don't understand how people can even get into playing this game. If you're just spamming the same abilities for about 100 hours, by the time you get to max level, you're already bored of your class. The last reason, despite it being at the end of this video, is actually one of the most serious problems with the game, which is a faction imbalance that the alliance racials has basically created. It's quite simple. If you play alliance, then you're mathematically going to be more powerful in PvP than if you play Horde, and it's just terrible. Not everyone can afford a faction change, and some of us just don't have enough time, to re-roll. If you look at the biggest PvP servers on Horde, which were once extremely active with PvP, now they're basically just raiding servers because there's so little people playing PvP on Horde. Even if they balanced the ratios at this point, then it wouldn't fix the problem, because the damage is already done, that ship has sailed. Barely anybody is going to switch back to Horde unless the Horde racials become more powerful, so it's done. I guess the ironic thing about Warlords of Draenor is that Blizzard obviously designed this expansion with things to keep the players busy and spending more money on the subscription, but instead they ended up driving their player base away and making less money, probably a record low. Blizzard really, they need to open their eyes and actually listen to their audience, especially people who make videos like this. I mean, there's plenty more popular YouTubers making videos like this, and I'm sitting here thinking, I'm just completely stunned at how little Blizzard are actually listening. I don't see why they don't employ people to literally spend hours looking for your YouTube trying to work out why they've lost so many subscribers. If I was a game designer, I would make my team set a few hours a week to do something like that. Otherwise, how are you ever going to improve if you don't listen to feedback? I'm going to be honest with you guys, I think it would be morally wrong to go and buy Legion, and it could even make the current situation worse, because if Blizzard make money from Legion and increase their sub count, then they just won't give a shit. They won't do anything to improve their game. They're just going to keep regurgitating horrible crap. I'm just not going to trust them. I'm not buying Legion. I think the best thing we can do is unsubscribe from the game, don't buy Legion, and then maybe Blizzard will come to their senses and make an improved expansion or possibly a new MMO. I mean, I love the game, but whenever I think about how much money I spent to play World, I feel sick. That money could have been spent I could have spent 14 weeks of food for about money, or I could have bought 10 other better, more enjoyable games. I could have even probably gone on holiday for that money. But anyway, lads, my voice box is about to decompose. At the end of the day, it's just my opinion. It doesn't really matter. It's a shame, because really it is a good game. It has been a good game for a while, and now it's just, maybe I'm just getting tired and sick of MMOs completely. But anyway, my name is the Meta Goblin, and until my next video, ciao.